So Spanish food is incredible. It's not very well known here in the States. We don't have a lot of Spanish restaurants like we do Italian or French. But they use a lot of olive oil in pretty much all of their cooking, which makes for an awesome flavor. They use a lot of potatoes and meat and vegetables, and not a lot of spices, surprisingly. They don't like spicy food, even mildly spicy food. They think it's really spicy. So there's a lot of misconceptions there, like, oh, Spanish food is, similar to Mexican food, but it's night and day difference. So some of the main dishes I enjoyed while in Madrid were paella, which I'm sure lots of people have heard of. Just incredibly delicious, a rice seafood dish made with a spice called saffron, which gives it its yellow coloring. And you have just different seafood on top, like shrimp and crawfish and scallops, and it's just incredible. And then you have something in Spain. It's kind of the regional famous dish called cocido madrileño. So it's kind of a chickpea stew, and they serve it in three parts. So first they bring out the broth, the chickpeas, the garbanzo beans, which are the same thing, and the meat were prepared in. So they bring out the broth with noodles, and you eat that, and then they take it away. And then they bring out the garbanzo beans with the vegetables in a bowl. So you eat that, and it's been soaking in juices and spices, so it has an amazing flavor. And then they take that away, and then they bring out the meat, and you eat that. So that's kind of how Spaniards serve their meals and courses. So generally, a meal appointment will look like a soup or a salad to begin with, or a soup and then the salad, and then kind of the main dish, which is usually a fish or some kind of meat with potatoes or vegetables on the side. Oh, and I forgot, the salad is usually either a tuna salad with different like peppers in it. It's called actually Russian salad, ensalada rusa, with mayonnaise and tuna and potatoes and vegetables and peppers. It's really good. Or it's just a green lettuce salad with tomatoes and cucumbers and onions and kind of a vinegar dressing on it. So pretty simple, but it's delicious. And then the dessert isn't what we think of dessert as, like a heavy cake or ice cream. It's usually a piece of fresh fruit, just peeled with a knife and put on a little plate. And they have amazing melons in Spain, in Madrid. I still think about them and it makes my mouth water. They're just so fresh and juicy. Or they have like cut up strawberries with just cream stirred in. So the desserts are actually healthy, and they're light, which is good because the portions of the main dish are really big. So by that point, you don't feel like you have much room left anyway. But Spaniards, they go home. So businesses are open from 9 in the morning to 8 p.m. and everything shuts down from 2 to 5, and everyone goes home and has mediodía, which means they have the big meal of the day all together as a family, and friends sometimes are invited. So then they eat, and then they have the table talk after, and then historically they take the siesta, which is a nap, but I noticed not a lot of people do that anymore. They just talk, or they're so full that they leave and they take a paseo, so they just walk up and down like the city, just strolling and talking pretty leisurely, and then they go back to work, and they're refreshed and full. Like there's a saying in Spain that says barriga llena, corazón contento, which means full stomach, happy heart. They always said that to us, and that's kind of how they live. Food is such an important part of their culture there. Other famous dishes are tortilla de patata. It's like an egg and potato, sometimes onion, omelet. They just make with olive oil, and they can add also ham or peppers, or everyone kind of has their own way to make it, depending on the bar or the restaurant or the family. They kind of have their special touch that they're proud of. And then Canarian food is a lot of seafood that they just catch the day of and always tastes really fresh. A lot of stews, in the Canary Islands. Just hearty stews made with beans and fish and different vegetables in a really thick broth. The culture in Spain, in both Madrid and the Canary Islands, I guess in all of Spain, is that they very much value free time, and they very highly value their families. So the idea of an extended family being there for financial and emotional support is really important. And because families are so close knit, sometimes they don't have a whole lot of friends, like acquaintances. They have their family, and then they have a few really, really close friends. But once you gain a Spaniard's trust, and I noticed, and you really show to them that you care about them and that you're interested in their way of life, then you're friends for life, and they've always got your back, and they're always, like, they never forget about you, and they're there for whatever you need, which is pretty cool. Like, even being home a few years, I still know, sometimes we still chat on Facebook, and like, they consider me almost their son, because we formed such a, friendship has such an emotional bond there to Spaniards. And they're really passionate people. They're passionate about their families. They're passionate about their free time, like I said, and then they're passionate about football, which is soccer. For them, there aren't a whole lot of practicing Christians or Catholics, but for them, soccer is almost a religion. I was there during the summer of 2010 when they won the World Cup for the first time in history, and it was just incredible to see how empty and quiet the city was, because everyone was watching that game, and it's like a huge family event, an all-day thing. They paint their faces and wear the scarves and the flags, and just go up and down the street just screaming and celebrating, or lamenting if their team loses. And Real Madrid and Barcelona are the two main teams there. You really have to choose which one you go for. You can't be neutral, because Spaniards just don't really understand that. So you have to choose, and if you choose right, then that'll help you to gain their friendship and their trust, definitely, if you choose the one that they're for too. And then, like I mentioned, so many immigrants in Spain, they came in the early 2000s for work, and it's really cool how they've managed to kind of keep their culture. So they're in kind of pockets throughout cities in Spain, and they have their own restaurants and their own clubs where they play music from their country, and it's just a really unique opportunity serving in Spain, because you get to know so many cultures. You get to meet people from all over the world and be in their homes and eat their food and learn kind of their language and their way of thinking, and it really opens your mind and your heart a lot. So Spain has it's a really unique history in the fact that it's been inhabited by so many people over the centuries, and I guess conquered and kind of invaded by so many people. And every people who has come into Spain over the years has contributed to the current climate of the country, as far as architecture and the food and the language, the art, music, everything. So it was originally inhabited by the Iberian people, and then later the Greeks came in, and that was like in BC, like a really, really long time ago. And then it came under rule of the Roman Empire around 200 BC. And that's when Christianity was introduced to Spain as kind of the main religion in the Spanish Empire. So after the Roman people, the Germanic people kind of invaded Spain, and then the Moors, they're a Muslim people from North Africa, the Moorish people, they invaded Spain from northern Africa and kind of spread they spread Muslim influence and religion all over the country. And there were a lot of wars between the Muslim and Christian people for a long time in Spain. And that was in about 700 AD that they invaded. So there was a lot of tension. And then in the Middle Ages, it was like I said, just lots of religious wars and wars between different countries. And then I'm thinking so Ferdinand II and Isabella, they kind of came together in the 1400s, and they united Spain, the two kingdoms of Spain, Aragon and Castile. They united it and kind of created a more centralized government and identity that went along with Spain. And I skipped ahead. So after the Moors and the Muslim Moors invaded Spain, then the Christian Reconquista, the reconquest of Spain, that happened toward the end of the 1400s. And so the Christians, they drove Muslims out of the country and kind of helped the country convert to Christianity again and renounce Muslim, Islam, and Judaism. And it kind of gave them an option to flee the country or to accept Christianity. And they established Roman Catholicism as the official kind of not required, but the official religion of the country. So that's where Catholicism, it's been into play for hundreds and hundreds of years, and why it is such a big part of Spanish culture today. So then the Spanish Empire was really powerful, one of the most powerful in Europe and the whole world, and they conquered Mexico and Peru, Spanish conquistadores, and then conquerors, I guess. And then they had wars, and I guess we'll jump forward to the Spanish Civil War. Took place in 1936 through 1939, and it was Francisco Franco, which he represented the Nationalist Party, and they were backed by Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, and it was them against the Loyalist Republicans of Spain. And eventually that civil war totally threw Spain for a loop. It cost hundreds, thousands of lives. And eventually in 1939, Franco, he overtook the throne and established a dictatorship with himself as the head, as the dictator of Spain. And he ruled for 40 years. And during that time, which actually I met a lot of people on my mission, the older generation, they were able to tell us a lot of memories of that time. And he really stressed authoritarianism and just a forced unified feel in Spain. So everyone had to practice Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, and he ordered for the architectural styles to be exactly the same. So that explains why so many buildings in Madrid are built out of the same materials and the same architectural style. And kind of he limited freedom of speech and freedom of press, and people just generally didn't have a lot of freedoms during that time. And then he died in 1975, and King Juan Carlos, he took the throne as king in 1975, and Spain was restored to a democracy again after all those years. So it's now a constitutional monarchy in that there is a lot of freedom, and it's kind of similar to the United Kingdom's. It's pretty similar to the United Kingdom's government. In mainland Spain, the Spanish is completely unique from the other 20 Spanish-speaking countries in the world, in that they're the only country to use a thetheo, which means that it's what people refer to as the lisp, but it means whenever there's a C or a Z letter, and the C makes a S sound, then you pronounce it kind of as we would in English, the, almost. So an example is heart is corazón, shoe is zapato. And there's a rumor going around, it's been going around for years, that it started because a king of Spain way back in the day had a lisp, and I'm pretty sure that's not true. I've read that it's just a rumor, but as far as how it came about, it was just changes over time, and it stuck. But I don't think no one can really pinpoint the exact moment where that became part of the Spanish lexicon. One other distinctive feature of the Spanish in Spain is that they have a pronoun vosotros. So it's to refer to a group of people that you're familiar with, either your friends or your family or children. So instead of saying "Hola, cómo están?" like "Hey, how are you?" collectively as a group, you would say "Hola, cómo estáis?" and "De dónde sois?" like "Where are you from?" instead of "De dónde son?" Or like to come in the door, instead of saying "Oh, pasen, pasen," you would say "pasad" with a D on the end. So that's really, really interesting. And also Spaniards, they use tú a lot, which is the more friendly, the more casual, informal version of you. Instead of usted, they say tú. So we would always teach, whenever we were teaching a person, we could only speak to them in usted, the formal version of you. But they would almost always say, "No, tú te ame," like "Speak to me in tú," and we would say, "Oh, no podemos, we can't. Sorry," and we'd have to explain it, and it was kind of hard for them to understand, because for them it means, like, referring to someone in tú instead of usted, it means that all of a sudden you have this friendship and trust, and that you're in their circle of friendship, I guess. So those are the two main things in mainland Spanish. In Canarian Spanish, they don't have either of those things. Like I said before, the Spanish there is more similar to Caribbean Spanish. So they speak en ustedes, just usted and usted to refer to one person or a group of people. Always, they don't use vosotros at all. And also they use the ceseo, which means the C and the Z sounds that form an S, that sound like an S. They just pronounce them like S, like an S, like corazón, zapato. Other examples, I can't think of any right now. And also an interesting thing about Canarian Spanish that really threw me for a loop when I got there is that they don't pronounce, they kind of aspirate the S's on the end of words, and just barely, if even, sometimes they just don't pronounce them at all. Hola mis amigos en España, espero que estén bien, que tengan buena salud y que estén disfrutando la vida con su familia, en el trabajo, en los estudios, en todo. Yo les echo de menos, cada día siempre les llevo en mi corazón, siempre pienso en ustedes y oro por ustedes. Gracias por sus ejemplos y les quiero mucho y les deseo toda la felicidad y les mando un fuerte abrazo a la distancia.